There we go. Now we've got a fixed linkage. That's much better. And it even kind of looks kind of cool, like a race application. What's up, guys? My name is Andy. I'm having an issue with the throttle linkage on my 68 F100 binding and twisting as I press on the accelerator pedal, and I want to replace that with just a solid linkage piece. In my 68, I've got the FE 360 engine, so I don't know if that matters in terms of the throttle linkage on here, but I've got that whole bell crank system where when you press on the gas pedal, which is hard to reach, it pulls on this right here and it pushes this linkage forward, which then opens the throttle. I don't know why they did it this way, why they didn't have a straight linkage from the throttle pedal to the arm here on the throttle. I wonder if it's because the way that this is set up, there's nothing to grab up here. I guess you could grab that point, but the way that it pivots on the bottom, it has to move forward when you open the throttle, and by pressing the gas pedal, actually that lever goes backwards. So I think this design is so that you can do that, but why they don't connect it up here, I don't understand. And the problem I'm having is this whole system here is actually, it's kind of hard to see in the camera, but it's actually twisted and it's binding. And as I press on the gas pedal, it twists even more and binds even more, and it has a hard time, and actually the throttle will get stuck, and that could be dangerous. And this whole system here where it hooks up to the firewall, I guess that's just to support it so that as you push on it, it's not supposed to twist, but it is twisting. And I could replace this whole system, buy that whole linkage setup and replace that, or I could just put in a straight throttle linkage from the gas pedal there straight to here. The problem I'm having is I don't have a way to connect to this point here on the throttle arm. So I'm actually just gonna drill a hole in here and then bolt it up to that. I can't bolt it up here because this is where it pivots, and I can't bolt it up on the bottom because if it bolts to the bottom, that would need to go forward, right? It needs to go towards the front of the truck. And again, as you push on the gas pedal there, it wants to go the other way. So if I drill a hole here and connect that up, I can always go back and replace all this stuff if I ever wanted to go back to original. So what it's gonna look like when I get done is much like what I've got over here on my 66 Mustang, is the same kind of setup. It's a solid bar linkage that goes from the throttle actuation here to the gas pedal, and it's got these Heim joint rod ends on here that are adjustable, so you can spin the center section and it pushes those two out and make it the correct length that whatever you need it to have for your application. So that's what I'm gonna put on the truck over here. It's just the same setup, and install it, again, from here back to the throttle pedal. In the first step, we're just gonna take off these clips that hold this linkage, so this thing just wraps around the bar and it just plugs into the hole. So we'll disconnect that, do the same thing up here on the carb, and set those to the side. And now this throttle linkage is free, but we got to disconnect it from the firewall. Same thing here. There we go. And there's just two 1/2-inch bolts that bolt this whole bracket system to the top of the intake manifold. Now this other bolt, actually, there's a ground for it. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that bolt back in there and hold that ground back in place. In fact, I'm gonna put both bolts back in the intake manifold. There's no reason to take them out. Now we can get this guy out of here. All right. Here's just a quick look at that linkage system. Again, as the throttle pedal would be depressed, when you're accelerating, it would move this forward and open up that throttle. I don't need this system because I'm gonna go straight from the pedal straight to the carb, so we can bypass this whole thing. And there's no reason to get rid of it. I don't know if we're missing a piece here and that's why it's binding, but it's starting to twist and get caught, and the throttle would stick, and that could be really bad, real big safety problem. I also went ahead and removed that bracket that was on the firewall because we don't need that anymore. So the next step is I'm gonna get the hole drilled in here in the throttle linkage. The higher the better. It'll be easier to rotate this if you're farther away from the axis, but I can't put a hole there. That's not enough meat for the bolt to go through that. So I'm gonna put it in here in this kind of thicker area. And I want it close enough to the edge so that I'm not too far from the throttle pedal, but not so much where it could break through. Just gonna use a punch to mark the hole. There we go. I'm gonna drill a smaller pilot hole first. And then you're gonna wanna drill the hole the size for the bolt that we have. This 7/32 drill bit will be good enough for the bolt that I'm gonna use. All right, that'll work. And here's the bolt that I'm gonna use, so make sure that it goes in. Oh yeah, plenty of clearance. All right, same thing on the back. Does it fit through? Yep, it fits through. Okay, we're not gonna be needing this stuff anymore. So the throttle linkage that I'm going to be using is this right here. Now this is from, I sell this is on my website, KruseBuilt.com. Again, it's the same one that's on my Mustang. And it comes with the right and left hand rod ends that go in here. And then these fasteners here are the ones for connecting it to the throttle linkage and the throttle body lever piece on the carburetor. Well, I think this bolts are not, they're just too large for the pedal, and I don't want to modify the linkage pedal part. And the hole that I drilled is not big enough for those. I guess I could make a bigger hole, but what I'm going to do is I'm just went ahead to the hardware store and just got a little bit smaller fastener instead of these ones that are on here. These are 1/4 20 screws right here, these guys right here. And I just got a little bit smaller. I think these are 1032s or something like that. And so if I take these, then I've got different styles just in case I didn't know what I wanted to use. But this will work. This the little bit smaller hole, again, in that throttle part of the carburetor. I didn't want to drill too big of a hole. This will work, but this is what you would have gotten with the kit, and this would still work if the holes are the same size. If you have a different carburetor on your truck, you likely already have a hole that's sized for the this 1/4 20 screw, and that's what I did on my car, in that Holley carb that I have. And I used to have an Edelbrock carb, and it was the same thing. I had a hole already for that screw, so you're good to go there. But with the stock, what is this, an Autolite carb or whatever that's on here, I had to drill that hole, so we got a little bit smaller fastener. So now what we need to do is set the length for this throttle linkage. And so we have to be careful that we have the correct distance from this hole to the throttle pedal. Now, it looks like it's a long ways right now, but that pedal has fallen down. The correct way to do this so that we get the right pedal length is to push the pedal all the way to the floor inside the truck, put a brick or something on there just to hold it at the lowest point, because when you press on the throttle, you want that to be the bottom. And then we open up this all the way, and then we can measure the distance from this hole that I drilled to that hole on the throttle linkage, or the pedal linkage, and that will be the length that we're going to set that new throttle linkage to. So if we come inside the truck, I'm going to take the steel plate and just set this on the throttle pedal so that it's all the way down. Like if I had, pushed the throttle all the way to the floor, that's the farthest that linkage pedal will come back away from the carb. So now that we have that all the way back, now we want to open this up all of the way, and you want to measure that new hole that I drilled from that hole to that top hole on that pedal linkage. Now it's hard to show here on the camera what I've got here, but I'm sitting at roughly, 11.5 inches, just short of 11.5 inches from the center of this hole to the center of that hole. So we come back to this. And again, I'm not going to need these 1/4 20 fasteners because the hole's not big enough, but that's might be different for your carburetor. And then I believe this one goes on this end. So there's a right hand and a left hand, and the left hand's got this little mark here on the edge so you can tell which one the left hand end is. So we're going to thread this on there. And you got this set screw that we're going to want to tighten down when we're done. And then this guy, left hand thread. All right, let's get those guys roughly. Let's see what we got here. So if I started at 10 at the center of that means 21.5. Okay, so this is just a little long. I need to shorten this up a little bit. Okay. Remember, I'm looking for 11.5. So if I do it from, again, starting at the 10, I need to be 21.5, because 11.5 inches from the 10 here. And that's pretty cool. I'm going to go just a little tiny bit shorter. Okay. Yeah, I'm just shy of 11.5 inches center to center. Cool. Let's put this on the car, or truck. Okay, so we're going to connect up. Go ahead and take that weight off of the pedal, the accelerator pedal linkage there, so that you can move this around. I'm not going to tighten this down all the way, just get it so that it's secured. Okay. I'll do the same thing up here on this one. Now when we tighten this down, we don't have to worry about this bolt binding on anything, because inside these rod ends, there's a spherical bearing type of setup, so it will allow it to, when you tighten this down, it will pivot inside here and not bind up at all. So cool. I think that looks good. I do have to worry about this return spring here. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that piece. I'm going to take it off for now and just know that I need to come up with another operation for that. So cool, I think from here, I'm gonna tighten this up. All right, there we go. Now we've got a fixed linkage. I need to put the return spring back on here, but that's much better. And it even kind of looks kind of cool, like a race application. All right, now I got the return spring installed. This is much better. This is just a generic return spring kit. You can get it at a local auto parts store. They're a couple of bucks. It's not a big deal. I just connected it to that bolt that we had with that other throttle linkage that was on here. And so now this thing's all good to go. It's happy, right? If we, I can't reach if we push on it, it doesn't bind up, doesn't stick. And I like that. Now again, the reason why we had to measure with the pedal down, so when I press the pedal all the way to the floor, it's gonna open this thing up to all the way open. If I just connected it and just set some random length, I could push the gas pedal to the floor and overclock this thing and cause it to where it would bind up on this throttle linkage up here in the carb, and I don't wanna do that. That's why you gotta set that pedal to the floor and then measure that distance when it's all the way open, so cool. All right guys, that's it. That's installing an aftermarket throttle linkage on your F-Series truck. Again, it doesn't matter if you've got the stock carb or an aftermarket carb. This should fit most of those applications. Again, I had to drill that hole, but the nice thing is it doesn't affect the performance or the way that this thing works, the carb works. And if I ever want to go back to stock, I can just hook things back up and it doesn't hurt anything. That old throttle linkage, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy. This thing, it may be worth salvaging. I don't know yet. I'll just put it in a bag and hold on to it. But for now, I think this is a cleaner setup, a little more reliable. I'm not going to have a problem with that throttle binding up on me and causing an issue down the road. So I'm happy with that. And that throttle linkage, again, I might be biased because I design it and sell it on my website, again, KruseBuilt.com, but you can get that throttle linkage. And I also have this was the Gen 1 style, this hex shape tube. This is what I originally had back when I first started doing this, and now I have that round one, so kind of decide what application works best. And for this one, I think this round one was fine for this truck. And again, those aftermarket throttle springs, you can get those at your parts store and put those on there and then you're good to go. So I'm happy with it. I think this came out pretty good. I probably flooded the carb with the number of times I've been pushing on this. So I don't want to start the truck right now, but that looks pretty good. I'm happy with it, and I'm anxious to get the truck out and see how she does. Awesome. All right, guys, if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. And if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.